As requested, this is a short video about how to do database access and printing in WPF. So before I get started, typically you would not use a database access directly from a front-end application and prefer using a three-tier layout, three-tier design, where basically you would have a database and then a backend layer which would implement the business logic and therefore work and access the database. And finally, the top layer would be the client application, in which case the WPF application would be. This three-tier design has the advantage of isolating the business logic from presentation, and therefore you would have better control on when you want to change or implement new functionality in the backend. Well, for new functionality, you wouldn't have to do it in the front end and have to redeploy everything. So it's usually preferred to have an intermediate layer, basically, but obviously that adds complexity, since you would have to design and implement that layer. In any case, for this presentation, this demo, we will go with the two-tier approach, where the front end, the WPF application, will directly go to the database. So for this purpose, I have installed MySQL. You can use any database. MySQL is I think the most popular SQL free database. So this is MySQL community edition, and I'm gonna use the database that goes with the installation, which is Word. So I think Word is a database that has some geographical information, and we're gonna use the city table from that database. So you see a schema here. It has integer primary key. The name is a string. The country code is a string. The district is also a string, and then finally you have a population, which is an integer up to 11 digits. So if you do, I also open this workbench that we can run some test queries. So use Word to select that database, and then just select star from city, and that prints this out. So that's it for that database, basically. Now we're gonna do the classic. Let's choose a directory where we're gonna work. So this is the console of MySQL DB. So we can't touch this one. Put it aside and choose directory. So demo. Okay, that sounds good. And in demo, let's do a new project. That's the first one would be a WPF application. So C#, WPF, Windows, WPF, WPF application here. The location would be demo, and WPF QueryDB. Okay, QueryDB. So like the other one, it would be two parts: view model in F# and and presentation in C Sharp. So this is say the WPF side. Okay, I want to make sure that it created the right location. File name, demo create. Yeah, that's okay. So now we need a second one. This one is F sharp. It's a library. Location, it would be this one. Yes. The name would be this guy. Let's call it lib. Okay. Alright. So we do the similar dance, which is adding references. So by now should be straightforward. I also want to add the dev express ones. So easiest way. How come? What's up with you? Alright. So the easiest way is to use a toolbox to add something. So we add the ribbon control. One thing about the application, it would be one window in which we would print out the display as a table, the content of the city table, and there will be a button to print and a button to refresh. Okay, so I want ribbon control. Why is it so ribbon control? Why is this guy? Ribbon control. Okay, so I want ribbon control. Alright, and inside this guy here I want a grid. Alright, this is how it looks like. I will increase the size so that it looks a bit bigger. It's very tall now. I guess this would be fine. And what else? I don't like this white space that they have everywhere. Okay. Alright, and in the F sharp side, I actually want to add the nugget that I find it very convenient. So, what was it? I don't remember though. F sharp. Alright, so we need F sharp data. That's one. Okay. Here we need reactive functions. That's for sure. And the WPF. Where are they? .NET provider, blah blah blah. Where? Oh, this one. Okay, install this guy, and I want them everywhere. Well, probably not in the here. Okay. Okay, and then if there are more, we'll add them later. Okay, one thing I like to do is start with the UI. So I would put the two buttons. Okay. So you add the buttons first to the toolbar, So I want to refresh, guys. So these are the icons for refresh, and slide them to the demo, and here I create a folder for images and put my icons there. Okay, so I have this one, and we also want the print one. Print is not here. No. Print has some show stuff. Alright, print those two guys, and then print here. Okay, then add these guys to the project. Images. Okay, and what? Okay, that's not the way I wanted. Alright, I have a subfolder, so you should do this way. Actually show files. I can choose these guys and select them and add them to the including project, and then I say that I want them to be copied if they are newer. Okay, then I can remove that option. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is to actually add the buttons. Okay, so the way to do that is well, it's kind of specific to DevExpress, but basically you copy paste from a sample. That's the easiest way. So the idea is that you would have a bar manager where you create all your buttons and then refer to that later. So I copy pasted this part here. So obviously these guys don't exist, but they should be refresh underscore, and then same thing here, refresh underscore, the big guy. Alright, now it's happy, and the button is called refresh, and it's called refresh here. So now, okay, now that I have one button, I will just copy, make another one, go print, and then print here. Okay, that's and now you need to add these guys, right? The beacon group. Okay, and so we add the reference bar button atomic, right? We have a bar button, now we have a link to it. What was bar atom name? So the first one was refresh. Okay, and second one was print. Okay, so those two buttons, and of course they had to be bound to a command. So here we have commands. And we do the binding to refresh. So binding the command to refresh, and binding this command to print. Okay. Now we do have. Okay, this is done. What else is left? Well, we need to bind the data context. So data context. It's window data context. And this will be provided by a view model, which would be called main window. Right. So obviously, we're missing the namespace declaration for that guy. Alright. So XML NS okay, so this guy is yeah, I see you. So where are you? Okay, query. There you go. And then need to tell the assembly name. Okay, and the namespace will be actually not this one, because we are referring lib. And this is lib, and I will add one file here. Code source file, main window, and as the other guy, okay, I enable this one. It's a namespace view model, and type main window. I need dev express guy. Dev express dot yes and yes, so that I can hear it from view model base. Okay. So from here, it would be view model. And query, right? So now we can recompile. Alright, that worked. Okay, so next step would be to declare the bindings for refresh and print. So they would be here. So this is refresh, and this is print. Okay. Okay. Let's see what it goes, how it goes. Alright, so you have empty, and then if you refresh, nothing really happens. But that's pretty much it's good so far. So first thing, now we need to actually read the data, right? Before we do that, we actually want to have now let's read the data. That would be a good start. So we tried that by creating a test function called let let's do that in the do section. Do, and we don't test read data. Okay, and let test read is here. Alright, so when do is invoked, when the main window is constructed, we would read some data and see if we can do the query. So the best way to do queries, well, there's so many ways actually to do queries in the database nowadays. But I would say the easiest way would be using a link, especially for such a simple query. So we're gonna read everything, right? So just select star basically in SQL. That matches a very simple link query, well, which would be also a select. Every language in .NET has, well, C# has syntax for link, and F# has its own syntax as well. So we on F# and going to use F#, but it should be very easy to find the equivalent in C#. Well, I haven't actually done that before, so I'm gonna work through the tutorial for this. So what I do know is that it's part of F#3, and we just then therefore need to include these type providers, which are standard. Okay. System data is not part of the default imports. So we need this guy. We need link. Microsoft F# data must be an extension. Yeah, must be an extension. Okay, so okay for these guys, and then what is it now? Yeah, and then we need more. We need the extension Microsoft. So these are this is part of the normal installation. F#, what? This is surprising. Okay, so it should be F#. Here. Okay, then that. Okay, now enable this. So in F# data type providers are kind of extensions to the language, where an external DLL can provide new types. So the syntax is quite convenient actually. You import some DLL that is a type provider, and it gives you this syntax. Okay, so this is actually external. But what it says here is that using this type provider, SQL data connection, and this is like a constructor parameter string, it returns a type, not an instance. So this guy will use some runtime. Well, it's on a compile time of the F# project, but it's a runtime of the type provider. So it will go and actually connect to the database and then pass the catalog, the metadata, and return F# object that has a structure that matches that particular table. Right? So we have an error here because as I copied it from a sample, this data source does not exist. So I need a connection string for my SQL. You find that. So according to this website, which is quite convenient, connection strings. This is what I should put. So the address is localhost for me. The database is Word, and I think my username is Han, and I think I've put myself as password as well. So let's see how that goes. It doesn't go very well. Reading SQL Server. Okay, beyond. That is not looking good. Okay, I'm afraid this is actually only SQL Server specific. There's a big snafu here actually. It seems like the data connection, the SQL data connection can only connect to SQL Server. So we're gonna try going through the entity framework. Not sure it's gonna work though. It is possible. Good news is possible. Bad news is it's a little bit complicated, but not too much. So what I had to do was first of all add new two packages. The entity framework package and the MySQL connector, the connector for MySQL for the entity framework. So on both the same version, 6 and 6. That's again because the SQL connector does not support anything besides SQL Server. So if you're using SQL Server, you're fine actually. But I was not. I am not. So I had to use the entity connector, which is more flexible because it has different providers for various databases, but a bit harder to use. So the idea of the entity framework, just in case you don't know, it's basically like a mapping between SQL objects, tables, and entities. So entities is basically like an idea, the database version of an object. Right? So with an entity maps either to one or many tables and represent one concept. Right? For example, a city would be an entity. In our country would be an entity, but it's not always one table, because if you have a one-to-one relationship, the entity could be both of them together. Likewise, afterwards, what you could have is relationships like one-to-many between entities. For example, you could have you would, if we had countries, we would have many cities in the country, right? So you would represent that with a one-to-many relationship as well with the entity. The idea, though, with in the entity framework is that based on the model, the framework is capable of creating the queries as well as the database schema. So we actually normally you create the application first and then database later. But in this case, we work backwards. There is actually a tool to generate the code from database schema. But since in our case the schema is so simple, I just went ahead and did it manually. So the result of the reverse engineering tool is to create classes for each of the entity. So in my case, I only did the city entity. It had these 5 fields, like ID, name, country code, district, population, and you have to map them into two fields in a class. So that's what I did here. I have a city class, and I have this field: ID, name, country code, district, and population, and then accessors, setters, and readers. So this is an example or a case where I believe in C# it would be much easier because all the tools would be there, and also it seems to be more where they design the entity framework with C# in mind. So a lot of simplifications are possible. But I wanted to stick to F# for other reasons. later, that we use later. But it's not too hard. You do define the same things, starting with the entities. Then key here annotates this guy, so the ID is a key. And you also have a world, which database is world. And in entity framework, this is called DB context. So you inherit from DB context, and then you will have tables, right? So a DB set is cities is a city. No, a DB set of city is cities. Right? So that represents your data model, and then you just need to use that. So that the part that was a little bit tricky was this entity connection string, which is yeah, this is what I had earlier from the connection string website, but I had to add this guy here, the provider MySQL client, and without that, you would assume that the database is a SQL server. So this basically tells the entity framework to use MySQL connector, right? And if you after you install the connectors with the Nugget, it actually also added these lines here. The entity framework has this provider, right? So you added this provider here. Without that, you wouldn't be able to connect, because basically the name that you have here is referred here. Right? So once this is done, the entity connection type provider will connect to the database at compile time once again using this connector. We'll use entity framework analyzer, and then create a type that reflects the database schema. Right? Then the test read is basically using this schema, getting the context out of it, and using a link query to retrieve all the cities. So this is actually link query, which is not like a database link query. The provider is a database, so it becomes a database query, but the syntax is actually generic. Right? So it goes through a list, well, an enumerable of cities. In this case, it would be that table. And for every city, it creates, it projects a new record, which is just the name and the country code. So the name and country code is here. Right? So this city here is actually not the same as this one here. This is the database binding model. This is the stuff that I'm gonna put on the screen. So this city record is pure F# record, so it's immutable and so on and so forth. And this is better to do it this way, because you're not tempted to change the content of city. Once you've done this query, you materialize this into a list. Otherwise, the city is just a floating query until it's defined as link iQueryable. So until it's actually executed, this does nothing. So to execute it, you have force conversion to an actual list, and this is what test suite returns. Then in the test sample, I invoke test read and print the result out to the console. So that you see them here. Right? This is happening here. So okay. So this is good, right? We have bound. We have a query that returns the content of the database. Now we have to bind this into something that can be shown on the screen. Right? So we are back to this WPF app, and there you would I don't need that guy. What you do is you present the auto-generate columns. Yeah, so it creates all the columns, and it would so defined like this. It would generate all the columns based on the on the list that is bound to. So I just need to bound to something, right? So item source, binding, and then cities. And here I would have to export cities. So obviously, so this is actually gonna be promoted to this. Let's do it this way. It's more idiomatic. Alright, and let cities. So you want that to be mutable now? Let mutable cities, and that was a list of city, right? List city list. Sorry, it's list of city. I never remember the syntax for that. Okay, that's not that. It's list. Good. Huh? No, I was pretty sure it was city list. City list. Oh, it's this guy. Alright. And I initialize to not null but nil. Nil. It's not nil. Ha! Oh, come on. Nil or empty. Maybe it's empty. Alright, it's empty. Okay, so this guy is okay, it should become like this. So not the test anymore. So let's say read from DB, and from DB. So you should read from DB first, right? And use the cities here as a test. But actually, we don't need to do this anymore. So we just need to do read from DB, dunk that, and then the getter will return cities. Yeah, that should do the trick for us. Alright, that worked, right? We retrieve the data by the list of cities and their code from the DB. We can do stuff like sort, right? And now we need to do the printing. Okay. So now that I think about it, printing should actually, if you want to print from WPF, then it's not the right place, right? Here the print cannot be done from the view model. So the view model is not WPF specific at all. So it's gonna be done in code behind, which means that this guy was wrong, right? You don't do about the it's not a binding. So it's not a binding, right? But you have a click. One click. So use the item click. Yeah. And behind you would have this guy. You need to add a reference to printing, Dev Express printing, I believe. Yeah, this guy. Or is it this guy? This guy actually. This is what. And then this is the code you want. So view is us, right? view is the grid, the control itself. So in our case, that would be the grid name, x name equal country lister, and use that guy here. It's in the view. Okay, it's in the view. Alright. What do you want to know? Oh, just the name. Yeah, just missing the name. Sorry, so this guy here is actually not on the grid, but on the view. You're printing the view, I guess. Alright. So let's see. Alright, so I have this print. There you go. Then you can say print blah blah blah, all that crap. Yeah, it's kind of nice. So, for example, if I print, yeah, I can print to something. I'm not going to print, of course, now, but I could. Let's print to this XPath document writer. Desktop. Test print. Okay. Where's test print? It's weird. Alright, let's do that again. Yeah, so that printed it. Some weird characters here is probably because of the encoding of the database. So that's really has nothing to do with this application. Okay. So we could consider this application complete for that limited purpose, but that would be even for these limited functionalities, it would be pretty dangerous to consider that, because we haven't done any exception handling. So one thing we can notice is that, for example, if we take the database offline, what would happen? So I'll take it offline here, and I restart the app. See what happens to us. Yeah, we simply blow up, right? Which is not good. Second thing is, if the query takes a long time, what happens? So this is starting again now. You should work again. Yeah. But let's say that the query here is taking much longer than this. So I want to insert a sleep of like 10 seconds. Open system not threading relief. Alright, so 10 seconds. Well, one thing we have done is wire the refresh. So let's do that. So it takes 10 seconds to start now. Right. And okay, let's remove the sleep for a moment. But wire the refresh. So for the refresh, it's going to be fairly easy. We're going to read from the DB again. So that changes the from DB. Okay, that's the order. So print does not exist anymore. This can move down. So this reads from the database again, but the WPF has a read only one-way binding, right? So it reads the cities as a property from here at startup, but won't do it again unless we tell it to do so. So there are two ways to do that, right? You either change the cities to be a collection that implements the notification property notification, so that whenever the content of cities is updated, you get WPF is informed. The advantage of that is that it's fairly good if you have incremental updates. If you have individual inserts and deletes, it's much faster than having to destroy and recreate the whole collection every time. In our case, though, it's such a refresh that we have, so it will actually get the content of the table without knowing what was there before. And in that case, deleting entries and sending all these individual notifications will be slower. So we'll go for a second solution, which is throwing and then recreating the whole collection. Right? So that for that we need still to implement notification, property notification on the CDs, but not on the individual rows, but on the whole CTs collection. Right? So let's add the setter. Set property. That would be cities value and cities. Right? So this is going to bind. If it says that if we are binding to be setting city, the property cities, this will send a property notification based on the property name cities. So this would inform any binding, existing binding, that it has to be refreshed. But here we have the grid as its item source. So I'm not sure actually this is gonna work because it's item source. It's not binding, but we can try. Right? So to try, let's try this. So we say that refresh call refresh from DB, and refresh from DB set the cities. So it would raise cities. Right? So if everything goes well, the list will be updated. So I don't need this guy anymore. I will just call this guy refresh. Okay. So we launch this. Quick refresh. Alright, so nothing really changes because the database hasn't changed, right? So what I'm gonna do is change the first one, Kabul. Update Kabul. Update name equal Kabul 2, where ID equal 1. What's up with there? Update command city set. Alright. So run this guy. I only didn't commit just in case. Alright, so now we press to refresh and see if it changes. So it doesn't really change. Let's see if I do this. Yes, Kabul 2. And if I quit and relaunch, right, so the database was updated, but even clicking refresh didn't change anything. So first let's make sure that this is actually happening. Well, this has to happen, right? So the problem is that cities is marked as a binding property, but as a collection. So it will listen actually to notification on the collection, not individual, not on the like it's add and insert, right? So we need to change this, and what I would do is wrap it basically into a content provider, content presenter, sorry, which would present the binding cities with this particular format. So something like that, and then content presenter dot content template, I think. Right, and then I can put this guy as a content template. Up here. Okay, what's going on? Content template, that's not okay. What else do we have? Data template. Alright, that's the one. Okay, so if I start this, what's going on? Country list, that's not. Oh, well, because now it's a template. Okay. Okay, let's forget this for the moment. It doesn't work at all. So I also need to change the binding cities to just binding, because the binding city is already there. The item sources are already on the cities. So this is gonna be good now. Alright, and now we set it back to Kabul. Now refresh. That still doesn't work. That's weird. Let's debug. Alright, it seems like we're not being called even here. From CC. Oh, cookies mistake. This is using the field, not the property. So I have to do self.cities. Okay. That was really setting the fields directly. Alright, this looks much better. Alright, Kabul. Now we've changed Kabul to Kabul 2. Alright, Kabul 2. So the refresh works. Now let's do back and then see what happens if there's a slow database. So we already have 10 seconds to start up. Alright, and so we change the value here and see what push refresh. So as you can see, the application is completely frozen for 10 seconds. I can't even move it, can't click on anything, and the button stays pushed. The reason is that well, we're using one thread, right? We're on the main thread, and the sleep that we have blocks that thread. So we're in a pickle because we do need these guys, this code to be on the main thread, because it's setting properties that are UI properties. So this is bound to the grid, and the grid will read the values. We actually use this getter from the UI thread. So this has to be done on the UI thread. But if we do that on the UI thread, therefore we do this on the UI thread, therefore this happens on the UI thread, and the whole thing is sensitive to database latency. So you could ignore that and say that okay, database is fast, but having a latency in 10 seconds can easily happen if there's a problem with the database, like too much load or something like that. And in which case the experience is really bad. We can't even quit the application, and it's possible that the user will keep on clicking refresh, and it will get buffered, so it may even take longer. So the functionality is okay, but in terms of user experience, it's potentially really bad. So what we need to do is actually move this out of the UI thread. So we do want to do this in the background thread, but we still need to do this in the UI thread. Right? So this is where having the dependencies that we added here, the link and async, would be very useful. So we want to basically do a asynchronous query, and then get the results when they are ready, put into the UI. Right. So the first step is getting the running this query asynchronously. So it's actually pretty simple in F#, because they have something called asynchronous workflows, which basically turns like a sequential set of instructions into something that is asynchronous. So to give you an example, all I really need to do for that particular case here is put async around this block. If I do async here, well, hopefully, once again, we're doing live. See, I'm going to put async here. Read from DB does not return. We need to return this. Does not return. What's going on here? Refresh async unit. Right. So this used to be a unit. Now it's async unit. So this is an asynchronous operation. So by doing this, not doing anything yet. If I could read from DB, it's not doing anything yet, but it creates this workflow where these operations will be done asynchronously. Right? So why not do a callback? Well, callback in this case will be fine, except that the power of this async workflow is that you can combine them. Right? If for example, this function could also take some time, I could use another construct called letBang, and this workflow will call this get data context asynchronously and unblock when it returns. Right? So that means that if you had in the past used callbacks, and you had a series of operations that had to be done in sequence, A, then B, then C, you remember that you would have to do A and then register a callback to do B, and then B would register a callback to do C. Right? So very quickly you have a very non-linear code where you have a bunch of callbacks going in the several directions. And if you have loops and you have conditions, it gets even worse. Whereas if you use this async workflow, it is basically written as if it was linear code. Right? So I will leave it like that. I would do even like leave the sleep, but I would do sleep like this. Sorry, let's do sleep. Sorry. I think just sleep actually. These are specials. Well, maybe not. So the advantage of doing this as well is that this doesn't hold a thread. If there's an async function inside, like I did, assuming that get data context is asynchronous, if I had let like this, the compiler actually turns that into a state machine which saves the all the variables that used before getting to this point, and then it will park that thread. Right, we save the context and park that thread. So it's not like every async block going to use one thread. It's not going to be blocking in the sense that it blocks one thread. It's blocking one worker, and you can have thousands of workers, as long as you follow the rules of whenever the worker is waiting for something, you use bang syntax to notate that it's an asynchronous workflow in that case. So actually, in our case, there's nothing, right? But yet, by separating the read from DB from separating read from DB from actual using the DB, we kind of say that read from DB is running on one thread, and the other refresh on the screen will be on the UI thread. Right? So now I've done this. This is complaining because F# is tricky when it comes to looking at the types of the values that you are ignoring. It knows that this is no longer a unit, it's no longer void, it's actually an asynchronous workflow, and I'm just throwing it away here silently, and it doesn't want to do anything like that. So it's actually refresh is doing that, because refresh is calling read from DB, therefore refresh is also returning an async unit. So I can't just throw it away, right? And I actually don't want to throw it away. What I do want to do is execute that workflow, right? So I allocate resources to execute that workflow, and then get the result when they're back and put on the screen, right? So for that, I will use the link query, not the observable RX framework, and I will create an observable for that task. Okay, so I need to open this guy. And the reason why I do that is that the observable framework, the RX framework, is very powerful when it comes to dealing with streams of data. It can do operations on them, grouping, selecting, filtering, transforming, all this kind of stuff, and also manipulate that between threads. Right? So this is exactly what I want. Basically, I want to have when the result is ready, have this list of countries coming back as a stream, and then put that stream to the screen, right? So create an observable from this async workflow, and so I need to start this guy. Okay, what's going on here? Yeah, I need to start this guy. Workflow, let's call this workflow. So async, and I want to start, right? So start with continuations. So it's going to be a bit tricky because basically async is part of F# and RX is part of C# usually. So we have to bridge the two. This is and we bridge it like this, right? We say that we execute the workflow, and once the workflow computes, it will continue with the RX, right? So the computation is asynchronous guy, and the continuation is the function is called back whenever the workflow completes, right? So that's when it completes, we want to actually it's gonna be func observable like that. We want to call on next on error, because it's an exception, and which you cancel is going to be on error as well. Alright, so what's going on here? Observable subscribe function. This is this guy here. We want function of observer T result. Okay, so we're just missing the action. This is the one. The second one is the one that we're using. So we're missing the result, the action, right? New action. So we want to return an action, which is the action called on the destruction, on the dispose. What's going on here? Async. Maybe there's no new. Function. It is new action. Oh, I'm sorry. Alright, so this is it takes two arguments. The first one is this this observer, and second one is this guy. So it's actually two arguments, right? You need one here, and then you need the second one here. Let refresh equal this observable create. This is what? What's going on here? Too many parentheses. Okay, let's restart from the beginning. So we want to create an observable out of this function. The function takes a workflow, and the workflow would send the list of cities on the next stage. This is not right first, because it's setting directly the property cities, and we actually don't want to change that part of the workflow. This would be on the wrong thread. So this should return the list and put that list into the stream. Right. So now this guy becomes async city list. Right. Therefore, this observer is observer of observer, right, of city list. Right. Close this guy. What's going on here? This the parenthesis. Right. So this is a function. It's called whenever the compute. This is the compute function. So this is going to be called as when the observer is bound, and it's going to execute the workflow, right? Because of this start with continuation. When the workflow finishes, it takes the result and push it into the observer. Right? This is success, this is error, and this is cancellation. There's one thing that you also need to return. Create takes two arguments, right? The first is a function, so this we need to put parentheses. No, function takes an observer and returns a function. There you go. And the function is called when we dispose the guy. So the action has nothing to do. So it's an action that will be an empty action. Right, this is good. Right, so by calling refresh, we get this observer. Let's call this this stream, which is an observable of cities, right? And now what we want to do is take the stream and subscribe to it. And when we get the result, which is cities, we want to set it. So self.cities and then cities, right? So and it returns disposable. Since we are actually waiting, not doing anything when stuff completes, you can ignore the result, and the stream will be disposed when it reaches the end. So this compiles now, but there's still potential. There's still a problem, right? Because this would run on the whole chain will run out of the main thread, because this workflow here would run out in the thread pool, and will subscribe to the result on the same thread as the one that's used by the thread pool. So normally this should not work. So let's see if it maybe see. So we still have about 10 seconds. Should probably remove that. That still works. Alright, that is interesting. Refresh. Aha. So it works, but it's still doing the same thing. Yeah, still holding for 10 seconds. Okay. So that means that this guy start with continuation. It says on the current operating thread, right? So we don't want that. Okay, what do we have? Start. Okay, so we leave the start with continuation, but we do a switch to new thread. Switch to thread pool. Whoa. Alright, that's now I think what I should do is okay, so actually it's a good example. We need to without the code like this, right? With the start with continuation, we'd run this asynchronous workflow on the same thread, just running asynchronously, but on the same thread, right? Which means that our UI was blocked, like it was before. But we can change that by doing this do. We basically calls this async workflow. It transforms this workflow into one that is going to use a thread pool. So starting from this line, all the things afterwards will be run on the thread pool. Right. So that means that now if I run this code, make sure that yeah, sure. Still going to take 10 seconds to run. But as you see, the UI comes back immediately, and the refresh is on the back end and the background. So it takes this 10 seconds, and then the data is back. Right? Now, if I go and change the stuff as I did before, and click on the refresh button, you can see that the UI is working normally. Of course, cable 2 is still there because we have this 10-second delay. And now it's refreshed, right? And even if you shut down the server, that's what I was testing, we are still safe, because we refresh, we're still waiting for 10 seconds. But when the database query will happen, it will throw an exception because we can't connect to the database. But as you can see, this is it says it's unhandled, but it's actually going to be handled. It's unhandled here. This raises an exception, and this exception will be called by the start with continuation. Start with continuation on exception we call the on error code path. So we are here. The on error code path by default will terminate the stream and notify the subscribe function that there's an error. So subscribe normally has several overrides, one of which takes on error, on exception callback. Since we didn't provide any, the exception is simply swallowed. So this continues, and the application works normally, right? So even though the database is down, of course we won't get to refresh, but we didn't crash, right? And the rest is working normally. So this is much better, much more stable behavior. And if you bring it back up, bring the backend back up, then obviously then hit refresh, it will silently reconnect and resume operation. So it's much more reliable. Right now the stuff is refreshed. Okay, well, that's pretty much it, I guess. So one last thing, we did change this block here and wrap it into a content presenter, and that broke the printing functionality. Right? So to enable printing, we need to actually not get the country list directly as before, but from the data template. So the way to do that is to use the static guy, the presenter, which is which is a wrapper. So we know that guy is a content presenter, and it has a content template. From the template, we find the country list. Right? So this is a call to get the element country list, and it will become it will be a table view. Right? So we cast that to the table view. Once we have that, we can just call show print preview dialog box as before. That's the only change. Well, so that our application is complete. I will just remove the sleep here. The sleep is right. Take a cursory look. One thing which is weird was we expected an error because this is what's called outside the UI thread. It turns out that this call, even though it's done on a non-UI thread, this guy will be smart enough to switch to the UI thread. Right? But if you don't want to rely on that, and basically this relies on the fact that the setter of cities is the only thing we're using, and cities this setter is thread safe. But if you don't want to do that, or you have functions that are more complicated, you can explicitly change the stream to go back to the UI thread by doing observe on dispatcher. And that's actually what I prefer to do. This way I don't have errors later if I start putting more functionality. So this guy will say that at this point of the stream, the following part will be on the UI thread. So that's the last change I'm making, and let's try make sure it works. Yeah, so it works. No crash, nothing, and functionality is so we put Kabul, and then if we hit refresh, it should change immediately. Yeah, and then print will show Kabul. Right, so this is what our application needs to do. You can scroll here. I think you can actually do stuff like that with this control. Take this guy, put it here. Yeah, it's actually very nice. If you print, yeah, it prints per group. This is part of the Dev Express grid control, though. If you want to do more sophisticated printing, it's obviously more complicated. But there are two ways to print. Basically, you print a view, which is basically printing a visual, or you print a document. We actually print it as a document. Alright, that's it for today. 1 hour 20, so it's a bit longer than I thought it would be. But it's not too bad. We have a fully functional, we have an application that works pretty well. Hey, where's my column? Show column chooser. I want to put the code back. Alright. testing. Shut this guy down. Alright, and then refresh. Yeah, still works. Okay. Oh, of course you have this exception, but it should continue. And then oh, it will crash actually. So this did not work. Oh, the subscribe went back on the main thread. Alright, well I will let you do the fix for that, but really it's changing the subscribe here to catch for the error.